The moment I saw my son's signature on that paper, everything I built, every brick of that house, turned to dust. They said a father's love can fix anything. But what if love is the very reason you lose everything? My name is Adrian Reed. I'm 55 years old, a retired engineer living in the quiet suburbs of Boston. For 30 years, I believed honesty could hold a family together, that if you worked hard enough, loved enough, and stayed true, nothing could truly fall apart. I was wrong. But before I learned that, life was peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Mornings in our home always began the same way. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the kitchen. Mary hummed softly as she cooked, her hair tied up the way she'd done since we first met. Ethan would stumble in half awake, dressed for work, still trying to fix his tie. "Morning, champ," I used to tease him. He'd roll his eyes and grin. "Still calling me that, huh?" Mary would laugh, shaking her head. "You'll always be his little boy, Ethan." And for a moment, everything felt right. We had our rituals. Breakfast together on weekends, small talks about nothing that somehow meant everything. Mary and I would plan our retirement trips, and Ethan would pretend to listen while scrolling through his phone. He had his whole life ahead of him. We had each other. The house felt alive, full of warmth, noise, and the quiet comfort of belonging. I remember that sunlight. It came through the dining room window and landed on Mary's wedding ring, on Ethan's untouched cup of coffee, on the family photo hanging by the fridge. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what a good life feels like. If I'd known what was coming, that a single piece of paper could erase decades of trust, I might have looked a little longer, held their hands a little tighter, stayed at that breakfast table a few more minutes. But life never warns you before it breaks. That afternoon, the unease wouldn't leave me. Something about the missing papers didn't sit right. I kept telling myself it was a mistake, that maybe I'd moved them somewhere else. But deep down, a voice I didn't want to hear kept whispering one name: Ethan. I dialed the bank. My hand trembled as the line rang. "Good afternoon, Franklin Bank. How may I help you?" "This is Adrian Reed," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "I need to confirm a property document about my home on Elm Street. There's been some confusion." A few clicks on the other end, the sound of keys tapping. "Yes, Mr. Reed, we have it here. The property is currently under a collateral loan, filed under Ethan Reed's name." I froze. The words echoed through the receiver like a verdict. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" "It's listed as a secured asset for a personal loan. Is there a problem, sir?" I hung up before I could answer. My mouth went dry. I stared at the phone for a long time, as if it might take the words back. It didn't. For the rest of the afternoon, I didn't tell Mary. I couldn't. She was in the garden trimming roses, humming softly, innocent in her peace. How could I break it? How could I tell her that our only son had gambled away the roof above our heads? So I said nothing. I went through the motions, fed the dog, fixed a loose cabinet hinge, poured myself a drink I didn't even want. That evening, Ethan came home. "Hey, Dad," he said cheerfully, tossing his keys on the table. "What's for dinner?" Mary smiled. "Beef stew, your favorite." He kissed her cheek, sat down, and started scrolling on his phone like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just torn a hole through the life we built. I watched him eat, watched his hands, his eyes, searching for guilt, for hesitation, for anything. But he looked calm, almost carefree. "Long day at work?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, not looking up. "Crazy busy." Crazy busy. The lie rolled off his tongue too easily. Mary served him more stew, laughing at something on the TV. I forced a smile, nodding when she spoke, pretending to listen. But my eyes stayed on Ethan. That night, I didn't see my son at the table. I saw a stranger, someone who could look me in the eye and hide something that big. For the first time in my life, I looked at my own child and felt doubt. The silence between us didn't last long. By the next evening, it had grown heavy enough to choke me. I couldn't pretend anymore. I waited until Mary went upstairs, then called out to him. "Ethan, we need to talk." He looked up from the couch, surprised. "Sure, Dad. What's up?" I walked over, holding the printed contract I'd kept folded in my jacket pocket all day. My voice was calm, too calm. Tell me the truth. Did you use the house as collateral for a loan? He frowned, forced a laugh. What? No, of course not. Why would I? I unfolded the paper and set it on the table. His face changed instantly. Color drained from it. He didn't even try to touch the page. He just stared at it like it might burn him. Ethan, I said quietly, this is your signature. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Then, like something breaking inside, his voice cracked. Dad, I didn't mean for it to go this far. What did you do? I demanded. He looked away. I just needed money for a while. I thought I could win it back. I thought I'd fix it before anyone found out. Win it back? I repeated. From what? He hesitated, then whispered, I owed people. Bad ones. They threatened me. I didn't know what else to do. The room spun. All I could hear was my own pulse. You gambled? He nodded once, tears in his eyes. It got out of control. I was scared. Something snapped. I stepped forward and struck him before I could stop myself. The sound echoed through the room. He stumbled back, holding his cheek, stunned. Do you realize what you've done? I shouted. You didn't just risk money, said Ethan. You sold the one thing your mother and I spent our lives building. You betrayed us. Dad, please. No! My voice shook. This is the biggest betrayal of my life. You lied to me, to your mother, to yourself. Mary came rushing down the stairs. Adrian, stop, please! She ran between us, her hands trembling. He's our son. He's not a child anymore, I said, breathless with anger. He knew what he was doing. Mary turned to Ethan, her face pale. Why didn't you come to us? We could have helped. I was ashamed, he whispered. I didn't want you to see me like this. Tears ran down Mary's face. She clutched his arm, then looked at me. Please, Adrian, don't send him away. We can fix this. We always fix things together. But I couldn't look at them. I couldn't look at the woman begging me to forgive, and the boy who'd broken everything I believed in. In that moment, I realized the house wasn't the only thing he'd mortgaged. He'd traded our trust, our family, for one desperate bet he could never win. The days that followed were quieter and colder. No one spoke at breakfast anymore. The laughter that once filled this house was gone, replaced by the sound of doors closing, footsteps retreating, and the silence of three people who no longer knew how to be a family. Ethan avoided me. He came home late, sometimes not at all. When he did, his eyes were dark, his shoulders heavy. Mary tried to reach him, tried to reach me, but we were already on opposite sides of a wall neither of us could see through. One night, after another argument, Ethan grabbed his jacket and shouted, I'm not a child. Dad, you can't control everything. Then he slammed the door. The sound lingered long after he was gone. Mary turned to me, her face red with tears. You didn't have to push him away like that, she cried. He made a mistake, Adrian, a terrible one, but he's still our son. He's a grown man, Mary, I said quietly. And grown men live with what they've done. She shook her head. You think being harsh will fix him? It's breaking him. It's breaking all of us. I wanted to answer, but the truth was, I wasn't sure anymore. I was angry, yes. But beneath that anger was something worse. Shame. Shame that I'd failed as a father, that everything I'd taught him, honesty, integrity, responsibility, had somehow meant nothing. The next morning, I found a note slipped under the front door. No name, just a number and a message scribbled in black ink. Tell your son to pay what he owes, or we'll come collect ourselves. I stepped outside and saw a car parked across the street, engine running. A man inside was watching the house. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. I understood perfectly. That evening, Mary found me sitting in the dark, the note crumpled in my hand. What's that? She asked. Nothing you should worry about, I muttered. She took it from me anyway. When she read it, her face went pale. Oh my God. Adrian, this has gone too far. We can't wait anymore. We have to do something. Do what? I said, my voice tired. He dug the hole. Let him climb out. She hesitated, then said the words that stopped my heart. I'll use the retirement fund. It's enough to pay them off. We can keep the house. We can keep him safe. I stared at her, unable to speak. "Mary," I whispered, "that's our future. That's everything we've saved for." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "And what good is a future if our son doesn't survive the present?" I turned away, staring at the family photo on the mantel. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, a man who'd spent his life building stability, now watching it crumble piece by piece. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a husband or a father. I felt like a failure, a man standing in the ruins of the life he thought he understood. I spent the next morning at the bank. The air inside was sharp and cold, the kind that makes you feel smaller than you are. Papers shuffled, printers clicked, people smiled the kind of smiles that mean nothing. Harold Cooper came out from his office, the same man I used to have lunch with every Friday when we still thought the world was simple. He looked older, tired, the way people in banks always do. "Adrian," he said softly, shaking my hand. "I read the file. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize it was your house." "It's not your fault," I said. "I just need to know what can be done." He sighed and motioned for me to sit. "The loan's in Ethan's name. Technically, the house is collateral. You could pay it off, but you'd be covering a debt that isn't yours. You know that, right?" I nodded. "I know." Harold studied me for a moment, his voice lowering. "Adrian, I've known you 30 years. You've always done the right thing. But this," he tapped the paper gently, "this isn't your mistake to fix. Let Ethan face the consequences. If you keep rescuing him, he'll never learn." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But then I pictured Mary, her soft voice, the way her hands trembled when she talked about losing the house, how she still set a place for Ethan at dinner, even when he didn't come home. If I let the bank take it, I'd be the one watching her heartbreak all over again. I leaned back, rubbing my temples. "If I don't pay, they'll seize the property?" "Eventually," Harold said quietly. "But you'd still have time. A few weeks, maybe." A few weeks. That was all. When I left the bank, the sky was gray, heavy with the kind of stillness that warns of rain. I walked slowly to the car, carrying the weight of every decision I'd ever made. For 30 years, I'd been a man of reason, a man who believed in doing what's right even when it hurt. But now reason felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. At home, Mary was waiting by the window. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, her eyes asking the question I couldn't answer. I sat beside her and finally whispered, "The bank can't help. It's either we pay or we lose everything." She took my hand, her voice breaking. "Then we'll pay." I wanted to tell her no, to stand firm, to be the strong man she thought I was. But the truth was, I couldn't bear to see her lose the home she'd built with her own hands. That night, I sat in the living room alone. The clock ticked, slow and steady. The walls seemed to close in around me. I looked at the photographs, the worn furniture, the scratches on the floor where Ethan had played as a boy. Every corner held a memory, every memory a reminder of what was at stake. I realized then that I wasn't fighting for the house anymore. I was fighting for what was left of us. And in that fight, there was no victory. Only the choice between reason and love, between saving the home or saving what remained of my soul. I should have known something was wrong the moment Mary stopped meeting my eyes. She moved through the house quietly, her voice softer than usual, her phone always close to her. I told myself she was just tired, but deep down, I already feared the truth, that she had made her choice before I even finished mine. A week later, the bank statement arrived. I almost didn't open it, but habit won. I unfolded the paper, and there it was, the transfer, a large sum withdrawn from our retirement fund. The note beside it read simply, "To Ethan Reed." For a moment, everything around me blurred. The clock, the window, even the sound of my own breathing. I gripped the table until my knuckles went white. When she came home that evening, I was waiting. The paper lay between us like a blade. "What is this, Mary?" Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. "Adrian, please listen to me." "You took it," I said quietly. "You took our savings. I had to, she whispered. He called me. He was terrified. They were threatening him again. He said this would be the last time. I stood up, my voice rising. The last time? You think there's a last time for people like that? You think you can buy your way out of his choices? She cried harder. He's our son. He made a mistake, but he's still ours. I couldn't just stand by and watch him fall apart. I felt my chest tighten, anger and grief twisting together until I couldn't tell them apart. Em told me to believe in this family, I said, my voice shaking, but now it's you who's done something behind my back. She reached for me, but I pulled away. The distance between us had never felt wider. Then the phone rang. It was Ethan. His voice was shaky, almost breaking. Dad, I know everything's a mess, but I swear I'll fix this. I'm going to make it right. Where are you? I asked. Come home. We'll talk face to face. A pause, then quietly. Soon. The line went dead. That night, I drove through half the city looking for him. The old bar he used to visit, the park we used to walk in when he was a boy, even the pawn shop where I once helped him redeem his first guitar. No sign, no trace. By midnight, I stopped the car and sat in the dark, gripping the steering wheel. For years, I'd believed a father's love could anchor a family, but love, it seemed, wasn't an anchor at all. It was a weight, one that kept dragging us deeper every time I tried to lift us out. When I came home, Mary was sitting by the window, staring into the night. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. Between us, the silence said everything, the sound of trust breaking for the last time. It was almost midnight when I heard the knock. 3 sharp blows against the door, not the kind of knock that waits for permission. Mary was already trembling when I reached the hallway. Adrian, she whispered, don't open it. But I did. And there he was, Jack Miller, mid-40s, thick neck, cold eyes that had seen too much of other people's desperation. He smelled of cigarettes and rain. Evening, Mr. Reed, he said with a crooked smile. Your boy's gone quiet. I'm here to collect. This is my house, I said. You've got no business here. He stepped forward, ignoring me. Your house is my business until I get my money. Your son promised payment by tonight. Guess who pays when he doesn't? Mary tried to speak, voice shaking. Please, he said he was fixing it. Jack laughed. Fixing it? Lady, he's knee-deep in lies. Maybe you should have taught him better. Before I realized it, my hand was on his collar. Don't talk about my family, I hissed. He shoved me back, hard enough that I stumbled against the table. Something in me snapped. Years of anger, disappointment, guilt. It all erupted at once. I swung first. He hit back. Chairs crashed. Glass shattered. Mary screamed, Adrian, stop, please. We struggled until the sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights flashed through the window as 2 officers pulled us apart. My chest burned. My lip was bleeding, but I didn't care. I looked past them, at Jack's sneer, at Mary's terrified face, and all I felt was exhaustion. The police questioned us in the living room. One of them took Jack outside. The other radioed something in. Moments later, the words hit me like a blow. They've got your son in custody, sir. Fraud and financial misrepresentation. Looks like he'd been moving other people's money, not just gambling. Mary gasped, covering her mouth. I closed my eyes. It was over. Whatever we thought we were saving was gone. By dawn, the house was quiet again. Jack was gone. Ethan was behind bars, and Mary sat beside me, her head on my shoulder, silent tears falling. The officer returned the final report, his voice low. Your home's safe for now, Mr. Reed. The collateral's cleared in the investigation. Safe. The word sounded empty. When the door closed behind them, I walked through every room, the kitchen where laughter once lived, the hallway still echoing with our fights, the bedroom where silence had grown too thick to breathe. Everything was still here, yet nothing felt alive. Mary looked up at me, her voice breaking. We saved the house, Adrian. I nodded, staring at the floor. Yes, I said quietly. We saved the house. But in my heart, I knew the truth. The house was standing, but the family that built it had already fallen. The trial was short. Ethan sat there in the same gray suit I'd bought him for his first job interview, the fabric now wrinkled, the boy inside it older and smaller somehow. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, He looked at me instead of the court. His voice trembled. "I'm sorry, Dad. I never meant for it to go this far." I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Every memory, his first steps, his first bicycle fall, his first lie, passed before me like ghosts. When the judge offered me the chance to press for a heavier sentence, I said no. "He's already lost enough," I told them. "So have we." Ethan was given a light sentence: community service, probation, counseling. They called it mercy. I called it the last thing I could give him without breaking completely. Weeks later, the house was quiet again. The walls were repainted, the windows fixed, but the silence was heavier than ever. Mary and I sat on the back porch one afternoon, looking out at the garden she loved. The roses had bloomed early that year. Though neither of us had tended them much, she spoke softly. "Do you think he'll come home one day?" I watched the wind move through the branches. "Maybe, when he's ready to see what's left." We didn't say anything else. The air smelled faintly of rain and old wood, the scent of things that endure even when they shouldn't. As the sun dipped below the fence, I thought about the house, the bricks, the paint, the mortgage papers now safely locked away again. I had saved it, yes, but every wall whispered of what it had cost, and as I looked at Mary's tired eyes, I understood something I hadn't before. I began to speak, the words quiet, almost like a prayer. "I saved the house, but I lost the home. There are debts money can pay, but trust—" I paused, feeling the weight of it. "Trust is different. Once it's gone, no bank in the world can keep it safe." The wind carried the words away, leaving only the ticking of the porch clock and the soft creak of Mary's chair beside me. Somewhere in the distance, a car door shut, and for a moment I thought I heard Ethan's voice. But it was just the wind again, passing through a house that still stood, strong on the outside and empty within.